embrace this vision of hope that invites us to toil with hearts and hands and voices, to prosper and sound the call in which everyone rejoices, all for each and each for all. Modern technology, Mr. Speaker, has exposed the shaky foundation that has left our youth insecure, marginalized and unconnected to a system unable to deliver solutions to their real-life challenges. In effect, we're really reaping what we have sown in our progressive departure through the years from meaningful youth participation and partnership in nation building and wealth creation. We need a movement to meet young people where they are, in schools, sporting and entertainment events, clubs, community centers, on the block, in church, in hospitals. Meet them physically, academically, socially, emotionally, to help them build the relationships, the skills, the competencies, and confidence that they need to succeed in life. This means developing, supportive learning, sporting, recreational settings that nurture the strengths and interests of the youth and enable them to thrive while building relationships and bonding with peers and adults. Youth are learning all the time, in and out of school, in families, in neighborhoods, in communities. We must align our youth development resources to a strategy for giving them the broad range of skill sets, knowledge, and competencies needed to become lifelong learners, successful business leaders, high-performance professionals, productive workers, world-class artists, sportsmen and women, and engaged citizens. Let us fix our focus on the settings and services that facilitate young people to grow while exploring interests and dealing with the issues that affect their passions, concerns, and dreams of success. Let us provide a solid platform for successful youth participation in the partnership to build, maintain, and continuously improve the best Dominica for all Dominicans at home and abroad. In this regard, let us establish in this budget year a youth entrepreneurship investment bank to help grow youth-based wealth in our Nature Island family. This new financial institution should be capitalized with $100 million from the citizenship revenues of Dominica, and will create the much-needed ecosystem of support around businesses of young people in agriculture, light manufacturing,
5 more minutes, sir.
tourism, IT and financial services, renewable energy, sports, and the creative industries. It will prioritize funding for youth business projects alongside technical assistance to ensure success in providing quality goods and services, quality jobs for young people, and sustainable wealth creation for youth. Mr. Speaker, with all the hardships endured by the people of Dominica, battling red-hot rising prices and frozen wages and salaries in a time of record-breaking citizenship revenues, the government's relief measures announced yesterday make a mockery of the struggle to survive in Dominica. It boils down to removal of VAT on the fuel surcharge and reduction in license fees for commercial vehicles only. Reduction in license fees for commercial vehicles only. Nothing, absolutely nothing to help with the rapidly rising cost of food, clothing, shelter, and other basic necessities. Not a salary increase, not a cash grant, not a cost of living allowance, Nothing. But somewhere I heard the ministers paid themselves an extra month's salary at the end of June. If loving poor people to be poor was a cabinet of ministers, this would be it.
Yes.
They were paid. They did not pay themselves, they were paid.
You have to withdraw it.
I withdraw, they paid themselves.
Okay.
They were paid. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
No, he withdrew it, so proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I withdraw.
He said he withdrew.
I withdraw the
Yes,
statement that they paid themselves.
Yes, he said that.
And I only say that they were paid. Is there an objection to that? Okay, there's no objection, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, the blessed people of this
members.
land
Yes.
need a fresh start.
Honorable Linton, somebody standing on a point of order. Honorable Minister. Yes. Hold on, one second. Yes, hold on. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I stand on a point of correction, and I understand the reaction of my colleagues. Those of us who received part of the double bubble, we didn't get the bubble, we got the bob or the bill, because the date that this payment was being made, we were still public servants. So for the period that we were public servants, we received a payment, which was not a double bubble, it was not even a bubble, it was either a bob or a bill.
So, Honorable Linton, you need to... So, Honorable Linton, so for the records, you have withdrawn. You have withdrawn the statement for the records.
The member, the Minister of Education said that she did not receive a double bubble. I made no statement about double bubble. She said what she received was a bob or maybe a bill, but not a bubble. I accept that.
Honorable Linton, you said that they paid themselves and you have withdrawn that?
That
nice, so I just, yes. So proceed.
Withdrawn that. Long time.
So hold on 1 second. Maybe I did not get it correctly. So ministers were not paid. Yeah, so you did not have to say bubble and... So ministers were not paid. No, not paid. So, yes.
In the interest of concluding my presentation, the entire statement is withdrawn.
Yes, thank you. Proceed.
All right. Because I need to make the point that the people of this blessed land need a fresh start and real change. We have the money. We earned it from the huge sacrifice of exchanging citizenships for investments in the global market. Let us put the billions of the people to work for the people and for the benefit of all the people. Our shared commitment to secure the best Dominica
2 minutes.
for all Dominicans constrains us to do that much. And Mr. Speaker, I say in closing, especially to the young men of Dominica, no misunderstanding, no difference of opinion, no argument, no material possession is worth the sacred life of a fellow human being. Think it over, talk it over. Let us turn to each other, not on each other. Let us live for each other, not against each other. Let us do unto others as we would have them do unto us. Let us sow the love that we want to reap. And as we seek to protect the lives of our young people, always knowing that prevention is better than cure, let us all drive and ride with care, with caution, and let us be courteous, kind, and understanding to other road users during the upcoming August Monday holiday weekend 2022. Ensure that your insurance and license are up to date. Don't drive or ride at excessive speeds. Nothing risky, take it easy. Whether you're a driver or passenger, wear your seatbelt. Whether you're a bike rider or passenger, wear your protective helmet.
Time is up, 30 seconds, wind up.
Do not drive or ride under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Don't text and drive or ride. If you're partying as a group, please assign a designated driver who will remain sober at all times. If you feel drowsy while you're driving or riding, stop and take a rest. Nothing we do in the enjoyment of our lovely Dominica is worth getting hurt over. Stay safe, stay blessed. May the ancestors be pleased. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, I rise to make my contribution to this year's budget debate.
Before you rise, we need to deal with a matter.
Before I go into the meat of my debate, Mr. Speaker, let me move a motion, as I did for the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, that every minister be given an hour.
Okay, so we'd have to suspend Rule 46.
So suspending Rule 46.
41.6.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
So you'd have to say it exactly how.
Okay, I move that Rule 41.6 be suspended, Mr. Speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And since I had already moved a motion that the Honorable Leader of the Opposition be given the same amount of time to respond to the Prime Minister's budget, I then move, Mr. Speaker, that ministers be permitted to speak for an hour and that other members of this House be permitted to make their contribution within 30 minutes.
Okay. It has been moved.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Okay, great. It has been moved and seconded that Rule 41.6 be suspended so that ministers be given 1 hour and the other members 30 minutes as provided in the rules. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This week I rise to make my contribution to the budget debate on this year 2021-2022 budget. Mr. Speaker, I want to start by lamenting the fact, Mr. Speaker, that we on this side of the House, we take our work seriously, Mr. Speaker. We take our work seriously because the people of Dominica has sent us here to do a serious job to represent their interests, Mr. Speaker. And that's what we are concerned about. So I spent, Mr. Speaker, since I received the estimates, Mr. Speaker, I spent the better part of last week, Mr. Speaker, going through the estimates, preparing to come here and represent the people of Dominica. And to represent the people on what I believe, Mr. Speaker, is one of the most forward-thinking budgets that we have come here in this present global circumstances, Mr. Speaker. And to listen to the leader of the opposition, Mr. Speaker, it was painful. It was painful to listen to the person who's supposed to be the Prime Minister in waiting. Can we believe that this leader of the opposition is supposed to be the Prime Minister in waiting, Mr. Speaker? The leader of the opposition was lamenting that he did not have enough time to prepare. His very posture, he came here late yesterday. The most important schedule, the most important meeting, Mr. Speaker, in the parliamentary calendar is the annual budget. Everybody in Dominica from every walk of life Mr. Speaker, looks forward to the presentation of the annual budget. The leader of the opposition steps in here, Mr. Speaker,
Mr.
2
Speaker.
hours after the presentation
Mr.
has
Speaker,
begun.
on a point of order.
Is that seriousness?
Yesterday, the leader
Yes.
of the opposition informed
What
this
is your
honorable
point
House.
of
Hold on,
order?
hold
you
on.
standing
My point
on? I
of order,
cannot
Miss-
yield if you not sign on a point of order.
Mr. I am standing on a point of order.
What's your point of order, honorable member?
That the leader of the opposition came
Honorable
here late.
member, what is
Yes.
your point of order?
Let me correct a point of correction then. No, Mr. Speaker, the leader of the opposition came there this
Honorable
morning.
member,
The leader of the opposition came there this morning, Mr. Speaker.
so you're saying it's
and
not a
he said
point
that-
of order,
no,
right, honorable
but
member?
He wrote to the speaker and told the speaker through the clerk that he would be late.
Honorable member, is that a point of order or a point of correction?
A point of correction, a point
If
of
it's a
order,
point
whatever
of
we take it.
correction, then it
Correct
should
the
be dealt
minister.
with after.
Just correct the minister.
If it is a point of
Simple.
correction, honorable
Well,
member,
correct
it should
the
be
minister.
dealt with
He
after.
know he's wrong.
Honorable member, please take your seat.
It has been done deliberately.
Honorable member, please continue.
Like I said, I painstakingly sat here and listened to the leader of the opposition. Talking, Mr. Speaker, in a diatribe about leading by example. That is the kind of leadership that he produces, Mr. Speaker. And that is the kind of leadership that the members on the other side, that is how they display, Mr. Speaker, leadership. So when we listen to the leader of the opposition talking about leading by example, he came to the house late. He stood up on his feet, lamented, Mr. Speaker, that he did not have enough time to prepare. And a budget that has so many goodies, Mr. Speaker, in it. He couldn't speak of one, Mr. Speaker. Not one item get towards benefiting the people of Dominica, Mr. Speaker. That is beyond lamentable, Mr. Speaker. Very much so. He didn't have enough time, Mr. Speaker. Electoral reform. We have spoken about electoral reform time and time again, Mr. Speaker. We know that the process of electoral reform is ongoing, Mr. Speaker. We know that Sir Dennis Byron is doing the necessary work to advise the government on the way forward with electoral reform. But the United Workers' Party are singularly responsible for preventing the advancement of electoral reform. We came to this honorable house and they stood up outside of the house by Dowasco, Mr. Speaker, with stones to stone the parliament. And the parliament had to be called up, had to be adjourned because of the safety of the members of parliament was threatened. The leader of the opposition, coming here talking about electoral reform, and they are the ones who are holding up electoral reform, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, time and time again, we have explained the workings of the Citizenship by Investment program. They have questioned the Prime Minister on numerous occasions. The leader of the opposition is deliberately misleading the public on the workings of the Citizenship by Investment program. Mr. Speaker, he is categorizing every single person as a separate applicant, and that is not how the scheme works, Mr. Speaker. That is not how the program works. And we have explained that to him before. 450,000 for investigating into the police force, 1 million for a peace plan, Mr. Speaker. I mean, what is that, Mr. Speaker? Just accusing the police unnecessarily, Mr. Speaker, because the leader of the opposition cannot respond to the budget that was presented to the people of the country yesterday, Mr. Speaker. That is what it is. He cannot respond to it, Mr. Speaker. This is a $1 billion budget. $1 billion. Only the Dominican Labour Party under hard times can come to this house, Mr. Speaker, and put to the nation a $1 billion budget, Mr. Speaker. That is the temperature of the situation in the country right now, Mr. Speaker. The proper management of the resources of this country. In hard times, Mr. Speaker. In hard times. Oh, Lord.
Try again.
Just on a point of order, is it parliamentary to bring in the...
What Honorable member, if you're standing on a point of order, please state the point of order for which you're standing.
I'm seeking clarification, Mr. Speaker. Is it in order for the minister to bring partisan...
Honorable member, if you're not standing on a point of order,
in
then I suggest that you
debate?
sit down.
I'm asking...
But you're not standing on a point of order, and you're disrupting the member's presentation for...
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, the leader of the opposition said that GDP contracted in 2020. But GDP had to contract in 2020, Mr. Speaker. We saw the passage of Hurricane Maria that wiped out 220% of our GDP, Mr. Speaker, 220% of our GDP. And look at where we are today, Mr. Speaker. Look at the state of the country today, Mr. Speaker, speaking about building an international airport of $1 billion. Mr. Speaker, and while I'm on my feet, let me just welcome my classmate and friend, senior Queen's Counsel, so we say senior counsel in Dominic, Queen's Counsel Larry Smith from Barbados, who is here with us, Mr. Speaker. I had lunch with my friend yesterday, Mr. Speaker, and he was asking me which part of the country did Hurricane Maria hit, because there was no evidence of the hurricane in Dominica, Mr. Speaker. That is what we've been able to do. And the leader of the opposition was going on and on with irrelevancies, not addressing the issues in the budget, Mr. Speaker. Housing for the people of Dominica. Look, after Hurricane David, almost every single house in Dominica was destroyed. Roofs, Hurricane Maria, roofs flown off of the buildings, homeless people, Mr. Speaker. And the leader of the opposition says that our housing program is largely partisan, Mr. Speaker. Housing program is largely partisan and bunching young people. Look at the beautiful apartments in Georgetown, in my constituency. Single mothers living in a one-bedroom arrangement with their mother and their grandmother. 3 generations of women living, Mr. Speaker, in a one-bedroom wooden outfit. The government has turned around through the Citizenship by Investment program, Mr. Speaker, and constructed 3-bedroom, $300,000 apartments all over this country to house citizens of this country, free of charge, Mr. Speaker. And the leader of the opposition is telling the young people that we're bunching them up into apartments, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is a party that has never cared for the people of Dominica. They don't care. That is what separates us, you know. That is what differentiates us. That is the dichotomy, Mr. Speaker. That is the party line, Mr. Speaker. This Labour Party government cares for people of the country, Mr. Speaker. We're lifting people up, Mr. Speaker. We're giving them a hand up. That is why they don't like the Citizenship by Investment program, Mr. Speaker. That is why he doesn't like it, Mr. Speaker. He came here, and instead of being constructive, instead of making proposals, giving an alternative to what have been put forward by this government, by the Honorable Prime Minister, he was stringing cliches together. From Shakespeare and from one literature. But life is not about cliches, Mr. Speaker. Running a country is not about prose, Mr. Speaker. Running a country is about taking care of the needs of your people, Mr. Speaker. People who depend on you every day. Every day we come to our offices, we see Dominicans, Mr. Speaker, in need of housing, in need of health care, Mr. Speaker, wanting to go to school. Bright, young, developing children, Mr. Speaker, that we built the State College for. That we send them to school, from preschool to Dominica State College, free of charge. And they have done well, and they want to go further. That's why we have created scholarships all over the world, Mr. Speaker, so that they can come back as professionals and contribute to the development of this country, Mr. Speaker. And that is why we are doing the Future Housing Initiative under the housing revolution, Mr. Speaker. One that is probably the 9th or the 10th initiative under the housing revolution. You remember we did renovation and sanitation, Mr. Speaker. We've built complete homes. And we have given $1 a square foot of land. Squatters who were squatting on lands that they did not own for generations, Mr. Speaker. It was this government in places like Chance in Portsmouth that said that we have to make lands available to the people who cannot afford. And we gave them those lands at $1 a square foot. That is what this government have done. So we just continuing the program right now. And the people that we send to school free of charge, the people that we gave overseas scholarships, we are now doing the future housing development. And we said that we would start in Warner, and we would start in Cotton Hill, in Honorable Reggie's constituency, but in the Portsmouth municipality, Mr. Speaker. That is what we are doing, Mr. Speaker, for the people of Dominica, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the leader of the opposition spoke about bringing agriculture to its knees, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister gave us an agriculture budget yesterday. That's what the budget was, an agriculture budget, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and the Prime Minister just gave us a summary. The Prime Minister could have spent the entire day there yesterday, Mr. Speaker. Yes. But he just gave us a summary of what we intend to do in the next year. And my colleagues will expand on that when they speak, Mr. Speaker. They will go in depth into what we're going to do, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it was just, Mr. Speaker, could you please ask the senator to sit and listen? Please sit and listen,
Senator Masley, according to the standing orders, you need to not speak while the honorable minister is on his feet. Yeah, generally, but he's asking that you not distract him.
Mr. Speaker, the leader of the opposition, Mr. Speaker, he correctly spoke about the challenges. The war in Ukraine, Mr. Speaker, has caused a hike in prices. Look at the fuel, Mr. Speaker. He came here and tried to dissect the fuel surcharge on the electricity bill. But it was the United Workers' Party who sold the Dominica electricity services, Mr. Speaker, for 30% of what it was worth. He should have come here as a statesman, and they sold it without parliamentary approval. When he's speaking about parliamentary approval for the payment of the rent of the Prime Minister's residence, Mr. Speaker. They came here and they sold, not even here, they sold the Dominica electricity services for 30% of what it was worth, Mr. Speaker, and then tried to backtrack and get parliamentary approval for it, Mr. Speaker. And thank God that this government has the resources to buy back the utility company of the people, Mr. Speaker. That is what we have been able to do on behalf of the people of Dominica. And we know the challenges, yes. Inflation, the war in Ukraine, Mr. Speaker. We know what it's doing. So that's why, as a responsible government, we have come here and we have removed the taxes, Mr. Speaker, on the fuel surcharge, Mr. Speaker. And that's why we investing in the geothermal energy, Mr. Speaker. And we have the geothermal expert, Dr. Henderson, who will speak after me, Mr. Speaker. And that's why we bought the company back and we immediately invest in the Padu plant. And DOMLEC has assured us that the Padu plant will be on by September, Mr. Speaker. So that in turn will cause the electricity bill, Mr. Speaker, to even go further down, because we'll be generating more electricity from the hydro plant than we have to buy diesel, Mr. These are the things that we have to come here as statesmen and speak about, Mr. Speaker. That's what you have to speak about. Mr. Speaker, agriculture is in the heart of the leader of the opposition's constituency. It is in the heart of his constituency. The Prime Minister has made a bold statement to the entire nation that we want to increase agriculture's contribution to GDP by $700 million, Mr. Speaker, by 2030. 700 million by 2030. These are the issues that the leader of the opposition should be addressing in this present house, Mr. Speaker. Because that is what matters to the people of Dominica, Mr. Speaker. Right now, agriculture's contribution is about $250 million. Contribution to GDP is about $250 million. And I know we can achieve that goal, Mr. Speaker. I know that we have what it takes in Dominica to deliver on that promise. And while I'm on my feet, I want to thank all of the technocrats in the Ministry of Trade and Agriculture who are working together, Mr. Speaker, to realize the vision that the Prime Minister has set. And we are doing a very good job, and I want to congratulate them, and I'll speak about some of that, Mr. Speaker. That is what we are concerned about, Mr. Speaker, empowering the people of Dominica. 2 years ago, we came here, Mr. Speaker, and we made some monies available. $500,000 was made available to the boat owners, Mr. Speaker, to outfit their boats and to upgrade their boats, and to send a lot of the seafarers to upgrade their training, to become captains and seafarers, Mr. Speaker. And that is paying dividends today. We have enough capacity on the water today, Mr. Speaker, to realize that dream. I want to tell every single farmer and every single young person today, there is money in agriculture. Get serious and let us get into production, Mr. Speaker. Let us get into production. Mr. Speaker, in Antigua, in St. Kitts, in St. Martin, in Anguilla, in Martinique, Mr. Speaker, Guadeloupe, and even Barbados, Mr. Speaker, there is the potential to increase our trade, Mr. The markets are there. The markets are there, Mr. Speaker. All they have to do is to produce. Let me give you some figures, Mr. Speaker. Right now, the demand for just bananas in the market is 500 boxes per week, Mr. Speaker. 500 boxes a week. At $25, and that is the statistics that the people of Dominica are interested in. Not the numbers just pulled out of a hat by the leader of the opposition. That is what they're interested in. At $25 a box, Mr. Speaker, bananas can still generate $500,000 on an annual basis, on a monthly basis, Mr. Speaker. $500,000 per month can be made in those markets right now at just $25 a box. So that is why the investments that we are putting in, $1 million for banana farmers, Mr. Speaker. That is what this government is investing in this budget. And the leader of the opposition, because the United Workers' Party used to call themselves the Banana Party. That is what they promised, Mr. Speaker, when they were in opposition to get into government. They promised the farmers $1 a pound of bananas, Mr. Speaker. And they are the architects of the demise of the banana industry, Mr. Speaker. They left the industry when the United Workers' Party left office. This government's first order of business was to bail out the DBMC debt of $35 million, Mr. Speaker. That is what they left. That is why our investment in agriculture today, Mr. Speaker, we have to pump monies into agriculture, Mr. Speaker, and that is what we are doing for the people of Dominica. There is potential. There is potential in agro-processing. Lord have mercy.
Senator Masley, I'm not going to caution you again. You see, you are a young person who is now a senator. If we are guiding you, just take the advice. Nice, take the advice. You'll have your opportunity to debate. Because if the minister asks that you do not distract him while he's on his feet, then just respect that. So, Honorable Minister, let's proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I can tell a similar story with passion fruit, Mr. Speaker. We have a market in Guadeloupe right now for passion fruit pulp, Mr. Speaker. And Dexia is paying the farmers, Mr. Speaker, $265 for a 40-pound pail of passion fruit pulp, Mr. Speaker. $265 at $150 a pound of passion fruit. That is what we should be speaking to the young people in Dominica to get into farming. The young people want to hear us. How can they empower themselves? How can government facilitate the empowerment of young people? That is what this budget is all about, Mr. Speaker. $24,000 can be generated in passion fruit on 1 acre of passion fruit are here. That is what we should be talking about. So the $5 million for the procurement of agricultural produce, that is what it will do. So the farmers within the sound of my voice right now hearing me, the farmers from the Marigot constituency and the farmers from the Salisbury constituency, you can now bring your fresh produce to the pack house, and the pack house can now pay you in real time. No more delay. 1 week at most, when we sort it out and we get the marketable fruit, we can now pay the farmers, the farmers in Penville, the yam farmers in Penville. And in the same vein, Mr. Speaker, the hucksters have always had a perennial complaint, Mr. Speaker, because when they take the fruit and they go into the markets, they go to Martinique or they go to Guadeloupe with the fruit, Mr. Speaker, they come back and they say, oh, well, the sun was hot and some of the fruit gets spoiled and so forth, Mr. Speaker. So we are creating a facility where the hucksters can get credit, Mr. Speaker. They can get some credit from that $5 million so that when they come back, when they sell the fruit in the market or they sell the fresh produce, whatever the case may be, then they can come back and clear up the credit. $7,000 credit will be made available to the hucksters. That is the progressive initiatives that this government is putting in place to help to further the development of the economy. That is what we're working on. So Dexter, Mr. Speaker, now has $5 million available for the procurement of agricultural produce on the one hand from the farmers and making that produce available to the hucksters who will not have the pressures of paying immediately for it, but going into the market, selling it, and will be able to pay on their return, Mr. Speaker. These are some of the things that the budget seeks to address, Mr. Speaker. That's what we are doing. And in the same vein, Mr. Speaker, we want to ensure that the fresh produce that we put out on the market, Mr. Speaker, is marketable because it's very competitive out there. And that's where the Bureau of Standard comes in, Mr. Speaker. So the Bureau have been working, they opened up a new office in Portsmouth on the Longhouse Port so that all of the fresh produce that comes in can be inspected before it gets onto the vessel on its destination to the foreign markets. So we can make sure that we put marketable fruit on the markets, Mr. Speaker. We can compete. The whole process of certification, Mr. Speaker, the Bureau of Standards is helping us to certify the farms and certify the farmers so that they can produce quality fruit, because that is what made these industries successful. They had a structure from the extension officers all the way up to the inspectors at the Longhouse. Perhaps some of us even too young to remember that. And what happened is when Geese Industries left, the entire industry really was managed by the private sector, by DBMC and DBPL, and some persons tried to politicize that, and it didn't work. So right now the government has to take on the responsibility of really managing the entire industry, the entire banana industry. And that is why we are putting things in place to ensure that we make sure that quality fruit reaches the market, Mr. Speaker, because you cannot compete if you do not have quality fruit on the market, Mr. Speaker, and that's what we're doing. $1 million for marketing and promotion of agricultural produce. We will get our people out there, Mr. Speaker. We will put together a team that will go into the market on a regular basis. Go into St. Martin, go into Antigua, go into those markets and find out what exactly it is that the market requires so that we can compete, Mr. Speaker. And we will invest in regional depots. So we're going to buy some cold storage, 40-foot reefers they are called, cold storage containers, Mr. Speaker, and we will place them in Antigua and in St. Martin on the port, Mr. Speaker. We'll also create ripeners, because one of the problems we find, Mr. Speaker, is when we package the bananas here, Mr. Speaker, and we send them, because of the condition of those boats, the bananas and the other fresh fruit reaches the market in substandard condition, and that has caused us to lose the market, Mr. Speaker. But with the cold storage reefers, we'll be able to pack the bananas and keep the temperature down and ship them, because now the boats are equipped to hold 40-foot containers and reefers, you plug them up so you do not break the cold chain. Also, we've spoken to our counterparts in Antigua who will give us space on the port so that we will be able to store fresh produce in the market itself, Mr. Speaker, and make it available to the supermarkets and to the clientele, Mr. Speaker, when it is needed. That is the things that we are working on. And that is some of the things that the members of the opposition should address. That is what you all must speak about. Speak about the things that matter to the people of Dominica. Speak about the bread and butter issues, and that is what this budget is all about. The budget is geared towards cushioning the effect of the geopolitical situation in the world today. That is what the budget is geared towards addressing, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, and these are some of the arrangements. In white potatoes, food security, there's no reason for us not to be able to be in a position to feed ourselves. Not only with bananas, not only with passion fruit, Mr. Speaker, but white potato. We have a number of farmers around the country growing white potato and doing very well at it, Mr. Speaker. But the government is responsible for ordering the seeds. So we will order the white potato seeds, super elite seeds, Mr. Speaker. We can get these seeds here by September, distribute them to the farmers, and when you come in and pick up your seeds, Mr. Speaker, we will also make available the inputs and the fertilizers to those farmers on a credit basis, Mr. Speaker, creating jobs in the rural economy. That is what the leader of the opposition should be speaking about, Mr. Speaker. That is what he should be speaking about, not talking about goods coming in barrel and people on the side of the road. That is what the people want to hear speaking about, a production support program that will assist the farmers, that will assist the hucksters, that will assist the people in the trade of fresh produce, that will feed our people, Mr. Speaker. When he's talking about increase in food prices, Mr. Speaker, when the leader of the opposition talks about the increase in food, that is what the government is doing to cushion those effects, Mr. Speaker. And in addition to that, the farmers will know that they have a guaranteed market for their fresh produce. Everything that they can produce now, they are guaranteed, because sometimes that is what causes the farmers to get discouraged, Mr. Speaker. When they plant, Mr. Speaker, and they cannot sell, they cannot reproduce, Mr. Speaker. But the government is saying to them right now, resources are being made available so you can go into your farms. And that is what we did, after the several hurricanes that we had and the storms that we have. We immediately made assistance available to the farmers, Mr. Speaker, so that they can go back into production, Mr. Speaker. That is what we'll do. So that Dexia will concentrate on the market intelligence, Mr. Speaker, get the wood from the market, establish in the market through the Buy Dominica depots, invest $1.5 million in that. That is what the Citizenship by Investment resources are doing for the people of Dominica. That is where it is being spent, Mr. Speaker, in ripening rooms, cold storage facilities, vending units, Mr. Speaker, so that our produce will be available, accessible, and affordable in those markets, Mr. Speaker, so that we can compete. We can compete with the Santo Domingos who bring in produce. We can compete with Suriname, who is coming into our market. We can compete with countries closer by, like St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker, who is threatening to take markets that are closer to us, like Antigua and Guadeloupe. That is our stomping ground, Mr. Speaker. That is our ground, Mr. Speaker. So that is what we would like to hear the members of the opposition address and relate to. That is what you must speak to. And you must speak to your leader, Mr. Speaker. He's not providing the kind of leadership that we expect. You're talking about the international airport. Of course you can design your airport and raise funding. What is wrong with that? You can have your designs. All of us who have built homes know that you go and you go by an architect, you design. Even you yourself, take a pencil and paper, and you design and you sketch it out. I want 3 bedrooms, I want a master bedroom, I want a veranda in the east, I want a little step at the back. We design it, we take it, or we want a swimming pool, some of us. We design it, we take it to an architect, they cost it for us. Long before we go to the bank, we know what our plan is, we send it for planning approval, Mr. Speaker. And it is the same thing we have done for the airport, Mr. Speaker. have our designs. We have our design, Mr. Speaker. We have them costed. We know what the airport will cost. And we have the monies to do the airport, Mr. Speaker. And that is why we can sign a contract, Mr. Speaker. And the Prime Minister told us about it. The United Workers' Party and the leader of the opposition came here again today, and he said, we had 30 million euro from the EU, $25 million from Taiwan, and in-kind support from Cuba and Venezuela. Mr. Speaker, roughly 30 million euro is what? 150 million EC, and 25 million from the Taiwanese is let's say what? Maybe 75 million EC. That's what? 300 million can build an airport, Mr. Speaker? I mean, come on, let's be serious. Let's be serious. Let's be serious, Mr. Speaker. The World Bank and the IMF and the CDB told the United Workers' Party at the time that their plans were not technically and economically feasible for the building of the international airport you all wanted to build. I came to this house already and I told you that the runway had a curve. The runway in local parlance had a Ben Couché in it, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the leader of the opposition is saying to the Dominican people that we should not build a 10,000 runway because he wants a shorter runway because the 10,000 runway will be too expensive. So you want to sacrifice safety, Mr. Speaker, on the altar of carelessness and recklessness. That was the character that embodied the United Workers' Party. Too expensive. The runway would be too expensive, so you're coming back again with the same thing. He said it this morning, that he wants a shorter runway because the longer runway, he wants 6,000 feet because 10,000 feet will be too expensive. People must listen, you know. I hope the Dominican people are listening because that could be a government in waiting. God forbid some mistake happen. The opposition could be in government and they have the same mindset as their ancestors in politics, Mr. Speaker. Same mindset, Mr. Speaker. You're talking about the leader of the opposition, because there was no tender process. There was no tender process. So, when the West Indies team played Bangladesh, and all of us were so proud and happy to go in the stadium and watch international cricket that we had to watch on television before, you wanted a tender process for that? And you had a tender process when you dug up the Windsor Park you met, and then you left it abandoned. People used to call it Jurassic Park in the Windsor Park. That is what they referred to Windsor Park as, on the Workers' Party. Jurassic Park. You wanted a tender process, and today you have Bangladesh. And I remember, the first international test match we had in our stadium. The member for Granby used to call it the New National Stadium, he used to call it, Mr. Speaker. The former member for Marigot was sitting down, in pride, Mr. Speaker. And I said, look at that now, boy. Look at how life is, Mr. Speaker. Sit down in the stadium watching international test. You wanted a tender for that, Mr. Speaker? Which company in Dominica could tender for the building of the Windsor Park, Mr. Speaker? You wanted a tender for the West Coast Road? Huh? When the Chinese making funding available for it, and you do not have to pay back 1 black cent, Mr. Speaker, you wanted a tender for the West Coast. So that is what your leader of your opposition said this morning, Mr. Speaker. You wanted a tender for the Dominica State College, where you have every single student living a secondary school today can go to school in comfort, free of charge, Mr. Speaker, and get an education. When I went to what was called the Clifton Dupini Community College, only 70 of us could get in, not because the others were not capable, Mr. Speaker, not because they were not bright. There was no space for them. We cannot forget these things, Mr. Speaker, and it is this government that have made these things possible under the Dominica Labour Party, led by the Honorable Dr. Roosevelt Skerry. You wanted a tender for the State House, Mr. Speaker. Look at the State House. Just open the window for the members of the opposition to refresh their memories, Mr. Speaker. The grammar school, that the first portion has been built, Mr. Speaker, that's your alma mater. And I heard the Prime Minister say that that is his alma mater, Mr. Speaker. And the extension that is now ongoing now. If you go there now, Mr. Speaker, earthworks are going on there now. You wanted a tender for that, Mr. Speaker. So the members of the opposition, they do not understand modern day governance, Mr. Speaker. They do not understand modern day governance. That is what we are trying to help them to do, Mr. Speaker, to understand what it takes to develop a country, Mr. Speaker. Think of the dynamic Dominica that we are creating right now. World-class health care, the Brenda Strafford Eye Care clinic that we just inaugurated there, Mr. Speaker. And the Prime Minister quoted Dr. Ricketts. Dr. Ricketts said that that is the best eye care facility in the region today, Mr. Speaker.
Center of Excellence.
Center of Excellence, Mr. Speaker. Before this government came to office, Mr. Speaker, we did not have an intensive care unit. If somebody had an emergency, they would die because we did not have the facility to take care of them. Mr. Speaker, we had about 2 dialysis machines for the whole country. Mr. Speaker, today, the leader of the opposition is not even speaking about this thing, Mr. Speaker. Top-class housing in Dominica today, a mere 5 years after Hurricane Maria, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Dominica's development prospects have never looked better in the history of this country, Mr. Speaker. Have never looked better, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, giving our youth the skill set. That is what the leader of the opposition, you know. I don't know if he lives in the same Dominica I am living in. But the minister for the new digital economy will speak to it. How many people have we trained already, Mr. Speaker, online, and they have found jobs? Jobs I am hearing that is paying between 800 and 1,000 US a week. Not a month, a week in Dominica today. You have trained how many persons? 121 persons are working in the comfort of their homes, Mr. Speaker, in America. In America, they're working, Mr. Speaker, for American money, Mr. Speaker. And the leader of the opposition is telling us that we haven't given the youth a chance, Mr. Speaker. The digital economy is doing just that. We want to connect all of Dominica. The same Marigot Hospital that he spoke about. It is the digital economy that will allow us to connect the Marigot Hospital to the Chinese Friendship Hospital. It is the digital economy that will help us to connect the Portsmouth Hospital when it is built to the China Friendship Hospital. So our vision is you can have a surgeon not only in Dominica, but you can have a surgeon in England and a surgeon in Dominica in one of the theater rooms working on a patient, because we put in a pacemaker the other day, Dr. Mark, we put in a pacemaker in the heart of a patient, and a constituent of mine from Portsmouth. That is what we're doing at the China Friendship Hospital, Mr. Speaker. And a surgeon in England was on his computer screen directing the surgeons and communicating with them right here at the China Friendship Hospital. Is the leader of the opposition living in the same Dominica I'm living in today, Mr. Speaker? And that is what we will do with the Portsmouth Hospital. Mr. Speaker, I came here...
20 more minutes.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. I came here and I really wanted to sing the praises of the Portsmouth constituency, because Portsmouth constituency, when we impact everything that this budget has for the Portsmouth constituency, Mr. Speaker, we will become a first-rate tongue in anywhere in the Eastern Caribbean, Mr. Speaker. That is what the dynamic Dominica will do. And we're not promising, Mr. Speaker. We're delivering. That's one thing about this government. We told you that Clare Harbour was going to establish themselves in Picard, Portsmouth, and create jobs. There are about 120 or so persons actively employed right now. People from Penville and Vickers and Benz and Paybush are employed there. That is what I want to hear you speak about. Do not follow the leader of the opposition. Do not follow the leader of the opposition. I'm warning you. People are listening to you, my brother. I'm telling you, as a senior member of this house, I'm giving you some advice. When you come to make your contribution, do not follow the people on the front row, Mr. Speaker. Warning you. Okay, Mr. Speaker, so Clay Harbor has established in Picard, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I am so happy, Mr. Speaker, that we have found a partner who will get the medical school going again, Mr. Speaker. That is some major news to our ears, Mr. Speaker. Some major news to our ears. And Mr. Speaker, for years, I come back to connectivity. For years, we have spoken about the establishment of services in the second term. All of the government services. And I am happy, Mr. Speaker. And again, the building has been designed. Mr. Speaker, I have a committee, an implementation committee in my constituency, and we have gone through the designs. The people in the ministry have also gone through the design, Mr. Speaker. They have looked at where the registry is going to be, where the treasury is going to be, Mr. Speaker, where the licensing department is going to be. That is what you do. You have to do it, you have to draw it, and you have to plan it. So don't listen to the leader of the opposition when he's speaking, Mr. Speaker. The sports division, inland revenue department, Mr. Speaker, the magistrates court, and there will be offices, Mr. Speaker, for the Portsmouth Town Council. We'll have an office in there because the site right now is a site that the Portsmouth Town Council used before, Mr. Speaker. So we will have a space for the Portsmouth Town Council, the mayor's office. On the top floor, we'll have a space for the Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, so when he comes down to the north, he can come to that office. And of course, you will have an office for the PAL rep, Mr. Speaker. The PAL rep! The PAL rep will have an office in that building, Mr. Speaker. You understand, Mr. Speaker? So that will start shortly. And if you come down, you will see that we have done a bypass road, Mr. Speaker, where we will do the bus terminal, so that we can remove the buses from Borough Square and eliminate the congestion, because we have already instituted the one-way road, Mr. Speaker, in and throughout Portsmouth, Mr. Speaker, and we will do the bypass. That bypass will have a bus terminal, so buses can...
You see, because the Honorable Minister is an experienced debater, the distraction is not affecting him. But if you are doing that to him, when is your opportunity to speak? What will you do? No, but you see, you guys are trying to distract him. So continue, Honorable Minister. But I'm cautioning the members on this side.
Mr. Speaker, you see, the thing about it is we are dealing with serious issues here. And we're dealing with people's lives, Mr. Speaker. And the life of the people of Dominica is not a joke. These are very hard times, Mr. Speaker. If we speak to our neighbors, to our north and our south, Mr. Speaker, they tell you countries having some serious issues with cash flow and meeting their commitments. It's not a laughing matter. That's why I'm not interested in jokes here, Mr. That's not what the people of Portsmouth have sent me here to do, Mr. Speaker. I'm doing the work of the people. It's not a laughing matter. If the constituents of Salisbury and Marigot have sent their members to Parliament to Jester, then that is a matter for them, Mr. Speaker. But the people of Portsmouth have sent me here to do a serious job on behalf of the people of the Portsmouth constituency. I am not in no Jester here, Mr. Speaker. And that is why we have plans again. I have seen the designs, you have seen the drawings, Mr. Speaker. And the same company who's going to work on the administrative building is going to do our courts, our multi-purpose hard courts at the Benjamin Farm. Those courts will be covered. They will be lighted, Mr. Speaker. You'll have nice sitting accommodation for them, Mr. Speaker. The netballers who have always complained that the basketballers are pushing them out, they'll have their own court right now. And then we'll have a tennis court because we want to get into tennis. We are a cosmopolitan community. And we want to operate like that, Mr. Speaker. That is what we into, Mr. Speaker, with our locker rooms and our... That is what this government is all about, you know, Mr. Speaker. That is what this government is all about. When we speak of the dynamic Dominica, that is what we are speaking about. Dynamism from the ground up, Mr. Speaker. From the grassroots to the administrative level, we have dynamism. Because we have a dynamic leader, Mr. Speaker. You have dynamic parliamentary representatives who have become dynamic ministers of government, Mr. Speaker. And we have dynamic advisors, Mr. Speaker, helping us to create a dynamic Dominica. That is what we are doing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, an athletics track. The Prime Minister commended the President of the Olympic Association, Mr. Billy Doctrove, who is a Dominican of renowned, remarkable man, Mr. Speaker, who has a vision for the development of the Olympic track. And we, as the government, we're going to help him with that. Because then again, Mr. Speaker, the Portsmouth constituency, Mr. Speaker, is noted for producing Olympians in Dominica, Mr. Speaker. We have had Jerome Romain, we have had Don Williams, Mr. Speaker, and recently we had Mr. Denick Luke from Glanville in Portsmouth, Mr. And had Denick not been tripped up that night on the 800 meters, he would have won gold, Mr. Speaker. He just won a medal in Jamaica in the Jamaican Games, Mr. Speaker, and I believe he's part of the team going to the Commonwealth Games. So look out for Portsmouth again, Mr. Speaker. They left already. Thank you. Oh, they are ready for the Commonwealth Games. Denick Luke, Mr. Speaker. So I'm very happy that athletics track in point, and there are much more exciting things to come that we have not even spoken about, because I have to speak to the Minister for Energy. Mr. Minister, I saw a plan, and I don't want to reveal it here, but it is tied to geothermal energy, Mr. Speaker, and I'm very interested in that, and we'll speak about that. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag yet, Mr. Speaker. So the Portsmouth constituency, Mr. Speaker, that is some of the plans that we are working on, Mr. Speaker. And like I said, the future housing program, it was in chance in Portsmouth, that the housing revolution started, in chance, This government, even in opposition, Mr. Speaker, when we were in opposition, we lifted 3 families. We literally lifted their homes. We put them on a truck. Bedford truck used to carry houses at the time. Bedford truck used to have to wet the rollers and pull the house. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to call the ladies' names, but the children are there right now. And we defied the government of the day, and we moved those houses into chance. And this government came along, and they made the lots available to them at $1 a square foot, Mr. Speaker. So when we speak about future housing in the heights of Cotton Hill, Mr. Speaker, we are experts in the housing business in this government. And again, it was not mentioned in the budget. So, because a lot of things, Mr. Speaker, we have not put in the budget, But we are working on something for the Cabrits area. I tell you, the cat out of the bag yet again. So when the future housing development will be built at Cotton Hill, we will have persons who will be able to sit in their balcony, Mr. Speaker, and sip a brandy at sunset, overlooking the Kempinski and the other developments to come in that area, Mr. Speaker. Other developments to come. Developments that we waited for, Mr. Speaker, for 50 years. When the Shanklin and Cox report was written, Mr. Speaker, it was written in 1969 or 1970, 52 or so, there about years ago, and it spoke about hotels in the Cabrits area. It spoke about a marina and other things, Mr. Speaker. Now we have Secret Bay in the Picard area, Mr. Speaker, in T-Bay, Secret Bay. And Secret Bay is possible again because of the citizenship by investment program developed and strengthened by this government, Mr. Speaker. And Secret Bay is moving from 6 villas, Mr. Speaker, to now they are doing 42 villas. So everybody in Portsmouth is working right now, Mr. Speaker. All the electricians, the plumbers, the persons with equipment operators, Mr. Speaker, everybody is finding employment at the Secret Bay development, Mr. Speaker. And the Travel and Leisure magazine have told you that development won the #1 prize in the world, Minister of Tourism, in the world, Secret Bay in Portsmouth. That is the vision of this government. That is where we are taking this country to, Mr. Speaker. That is where we want to go with our people, Mr. Speaker. We want to empower them, Mr. Speaker. We want to make them feel that they can stay in their country, in their homeland, and they can make a living. They can create wealth in the Commonwealth. According to the leader of the government, he spoke about the Commonwealth. We want to spread the wealth among our people so that every single person in Dominica, when we say all shall eat, it is not just a cliche, Mr. Speaker, but it is a place that we aspire to take our people to, Mr. Speaker. All shall eat under this government, and we'll continue to strive, Mr. Speaker. We'll continue to do what we have to do. We know that times are hard, things are difficult, but difficult times, Mr. Speaker, will put us through the fire, Mr. Speaker, and gold is purified in the furnace of challenge. That is where gold is purified. And this government have gone through the fire of trials, Mr. Speaker. We went through the fire of trials in the aftermath of the United Workers' Party in 2002. And he speak about GDP. The leader of the opposition speaking about GDP. The effect of the GDP is on the mismanagement of the economy between 95 and 2000, Mr. Speaker. The mismanagement of the economy when you talk about GDP. So I don't want to be sidetracked, Mr. Speaker. As I was saying, we are taking the people of Dominica to a place of peace, progress, and prosperity, Mr. Speaker. We are focused on the job at hand. We have the vision as outlined by the Prime Minister, and we have the resources to make that vision a reality, Mr. Speaker. And every single citizen of Dominica, rest assured that God is on our side. And when God is for you, no man can be against you. Mr. Speaker, on that note, I want to end my contribution to this year's budget. Thank you very much. Yes. Mr. Speaker, I move that this Honorable House be suspended until 4 o'clock this afternoon.
It has been moved and seconded that the House be suspended until 4 p.m. this afternoon. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. House stands suspended until 4 p.m. this afternoon.